Okay, last scene of Act 3, Scene 4. So, we're in another room in the castle. This is the Queen's room, the boudoir. Sometimes it's called the closet. They're not in a closet, but, you know. Here we go. Enter Queen and Polonius. Polonius is directing the Queen as to how she should act, much like he did with Ophelia. With here, have a book, pretend you're reading. So, Polonius is a bossy pants. So here he goes trying to boss Gertrude, the Queen. He will come straight. Look you lay home to him. And when he says look you lay home to him, he means like really have at it. Really get Hamlet. Just lay into him. Tell him his pranks have been too broad to bear with, and that your grace hath screened and stood between much heat and him, which means make sure that you tell him that you have protected him from a lot of the king's anger. Right? Screened him. I'll silence me in here. Pray you be round with him. So, Polonius points to the curtains, the arrest, and he gets behind it. And then you hear Hamlet, Mother, mother, mother. And the Queen goes, I'll warrant you, fear me not, withdraw, I hear him coming. So she's like pushing Polonius behind the curtain. She's like, get back there, I will tell you, just go, I hear him coming. So Polonius gets behind the curtains and Hamlet enters. Now remember, Hamlet's pretty fired up. So he goes, now mother, what's the matter? And the Queen goes, Hamlet, thou hast thy father much offended. And then Hamlet snaps back, mother, you have my father much offended. Ooh, the shade of it all. She's referring to Claudius, your father hath offended. She means Claudius, but then of course Hamlet goes, no mother, you have my father offended, and he means King Hamlet. And the Queen goes, come, you answer with an idle tongue. And Hamlet goes, go, you question with a wicked tongue. And the Queen is taken aback by all this sass, right? She's like, oh, why, how now, Hamlet? And then Hamlet goes, what's the matter now? And she goes, have you forgot me? Don't you know who I am? I'm the Queen, your mother, right? And he goes, no, by the rood, not so. You are the Queen, your husband's brother's wife. And, oh, were it not so, you are my mother. It's really sassy. And the Queen goes, nay then, I'll set those to you that can speak. And then Hamlet says, come, and sit you down, you shall not budge. You go not till I set you up a glass where you may see the inmost part of you. Now this part's pretty neat because he basically tells her to sit her rump down and to really take a look at herself, almost like holding up a glass, like a mirror, up to her face, so she can see the inmost part of herself, or what's going on, or the choices that she's made by marrying Claudius, by her hasty marriage, all of these things. And also at this point, this is where Hamlet, sometimes if a stage production wants it to get like that, he'll manhandle her, toss her about, throw her on the bed, grab her by the arm. So things are getting intense at this point. And the Queen goes, what wilt thou do? Thou wilt not murder me. So because of his act of aggression, of grabbing her, throwing her, whatever, she gets upset and goes, oh, what are you going to do? Are you going to murder me now? Help, help, ho! And so when she screams, help, help, Polonius starts fumbling with the curtains and like, what, ho, ha. And he starts, what, ho, help, I'll help, I'm Polonius, right? And he's like shuffling around, but he can't get out of the curtains. And Hamlet hears him and he goes, whoa, how now, a rat. And when it says draw, he draws his sword because in his brain, he thinks it's the king. And so he goes, dead for a ducat, dead. And ducat's money. So he's like, you don't even have to pay me to kill this one. And so he goes, stab. When it says make a pass, he stabs, stab. He stabs Polonius. And then Polonius, behind the curtain, Hamlet still doesn't know who he has stabbed to death. Polonius goes, oh, I'm slain. And he falls and he dies. And the queen is like, oh me, what hast thou done? She's horrified. And Hamlet's excited. He's like, nay, I know not. Is it the king? Like, could I possibly have killed the king? So he draws the curtain. Ugh, and there's old Polonius dead. Finally quiet, though. The queen goes, oh, what a rash and bloody deed is this. And Hamlet goes, a bloody deed? Almost as bad, good mother, as kill a king and marry with his brother. Oh, as kill a king? Aye, lady, 'twas my word, thou wretched, rash, intruding fool, farewell. So, here, Hamlet is really not sure if Gertrude is in on this murder or not. So when he says, as kill a king and marry with his brother, the queen is like, kill a king? And then Hamlet goes, lady, 'twas my word. Yeah, that's what I said. Listening? And then he looks down at Polonius and goes, thou wretched, rash, intruding fool, farewell. And then he says, I took thee for thy better, take thy fortune. So when he says, I took thee for thy better, he means I took you for the king. Right? And then he says, take thy fortune, thou findest to be too busy is some danger. And when he says to be too busy, it means to be nosy. So, finally, being nosy, being in everybody else's business, has finally put you in danger. And then when he says, leave wringing of your hands, peace sit you down, he's talking to Gertrude. Because Gertrude at this point is frantic. And so he looks at her and he's like, leave wringing of your hands. So she's like, oh, she's playing a perfect Lady Macbeth. Just like, oh, freaking out. And then he goes, leave the wringing of your hands and let me wring your heart. For so I shall if it be made of penetrable stuff. If damned custom have not brazed it so, then it is proof and bulwark against sense. So at this point, he kind of switches gears, even though there's a dead man at his feet, which would be very distracting for me, but for Hamlet, he's got business to handle. So he says, stop wringing your hands and let me wring your heart. Which means let me talk to you. Let's get to the heart of the matter. And the queen says, what have I done that thou darest wag thy tongue in noise so rude against me? So the queen is expressing the fact that she hasn't done anything to Hamlet, and she doesn't understand why he's behaving this way, why he is speaking so harshly to her, why he has just murdered a man in front of her. She is confused. And Hamlet goes, such an act that blurs the grace and blush of modesty, calls virtue hypocrite, takes off the rose from the fair forehead of an innocent love and sets a blister there, makes marriage vows as false as Dicer's oath. Oh, such a deed, as from the body of contraction plucks, the very soul in sweet religion makes a rhapsody of words, heaven's face doth glow, yea, the solidity and compound mass with tristful visage as against doom, is thou sick at the act. And so he's again talking about the unholy union between Claudius and his mother, and she's confused. She's still like, me, what act that roars so loud and thunders in thy index? So she's like, what act have I committed that has made you so upset, so tumultuous? Rage is in you. And Hamlet goes, look here upon this picture and on this, the counterfeit presentment of two brothers. So back in the day, they would make little miniature portraits, like little cameos of kings. We talked about this once. But Hamlet is drawing her attention. He has one of his father, of King Hamlet. And of course, Gertrude has one of Claudius, because that's her new husband. So he's looking at the two of them, and he's comparing them. He's like, look here upon this picture and on this, the counterfeit. So he's talking about Claudius. See what a grace was seated on his brow. He's talking about King Hamlet. Hyperion curls, the front of Jove himself, an eye like Mars, threaten and command, a station like the herald Mercury, new lighted on a heavy kissing hill. A combination in form, indeed, where every god did seem to set his seal, to give the world assurance of a man. This was your husband. So he's talking about how amazing King Hamlet was. I mean, he was physically attractive. He had the seal of Mars, which meant that he was a great warrior. So he has all of these attributes. And then he goes, now, look you now what follows. Here is your husband, like a mildewed ear blasting his wholesome brother. Have you eyes? Could you on this fair mountain leave to feed and batten on this moor? Ha! Have you eyes? You gonna call it love? For at your age, the heyday in the blood is tame. It's humble. So now he's even saying, you know what? You can't even be hot for this guy. You're too old to be like, ooh, Claudius, you're so dreamy. I'm going to get some of that. He's like, that part of your life is over. You're old. Yeah, that stuff doesn't happen anymore. Your blood is tame. And he's like, and waits upon the judgment. And what judgment would step from this, King Hamlet, to like this? Bleh, Claudius sucks, right? And she goes, since sure you have else, could you not have motion? But sure that sense is a pox for madness would not err, nor since to ecstasy were ne'er so thralled, but it reserved some quantity of choice to serve in such a difference. What devil was't that thus hath cozened you at hoodman blind, eyes without feeling, feeling without sight, ears without hands or ears, smelling sans all? Or but a sickly part of one true sense could not so mope. Oh, shame! Where's thy blush? Rebellious hell, if thou canst muten in matron's bones to flaming youth, let virtue be as wax, and melt in her own fire, proclaim no shame. When the compulsive ardor gives the charge, since frost itself as actively doth burn, and reason panders will. So he's telling her right now, he's like, you can't possibly want Claudius. This is terrible. This is horrible. You have got to stop this. You have to stop this. It is shameful. Why are you not ashamed of yourself? Like, he is going hard. And the queen gets upset and she's like, oh, Hamlet, speak no more. Thou turnst my eyes into my very soul, which is what he wanted, right? Because he said, I'm going to hold up a glass to you so you can see yourself. And then when she says, you know, that your words have turned my eyes into my very soul, she's now looking inward at some of her choices and some of the things that she's done. And then she claims, and there I see such black and gray spots as will not leave their tint. So she's starting to feel guilty. I think she already felt a little guilty, but she's starting to realize why Hamlet is so broken. And then Hamlet goes, nigh, but to live in the rank sweat of an enseamed bed. So now he's going hard. He goes stewing crutch and honeying and making love over the nasty sty. So he's talking about how nasty their sex life is and how it's gross that it's even a thing. And the queen is freaking out. She does not want to talk about this with her son. And she's like, oh, speak to me no more. These words like daggers enter in mine ears. No more, sweet Hamlet. And Hamlet keeps going. He is not going to be stopped. He is fired up. He is going hard. He's like a murderer and a villain, a slave that is not 20th part the tithe of your precedent lord. So like, this guy's not even 20th. He's not even half as good as my father, King Hamlet. And he goes, a vice of kings, a cutpurse of the empire and the rule, that from a shelf of the precious diadem stole and put it in his pocket. Diadem's like a crown. And the queen's like, no more. And Hamlet's going, and a king of shreds and patches. And at this point, as he is just tearing his mother apart, the ghost enters the room. And as the ghost enters, Hamlet looks at it and he goes, save me and hover o'er me with your wings, you heavenly guards. What with your gracious figure? So he's like, what are you doing here? Why are you here now? What? And initially, okay, I don't want to spoil it. Let's go. The queen says, alas, he's mad, which is interesting because here we realize that Hamlet is the only one that sees the ghost. The queen doesn't see the ghost. She just sees Hamlet kind of look over in the corner and start, cowering away from something, going, what do you want? What are you doing here? And she's like, oh, God, he is crazy. Oh, right? So she gets kind of her worried on. And so Hamlet begins to talk, and he's like, do you not come your tardy son to chide? So when he says tardy son, he means, are you come because I haven't killed Claudius yet? I've been tardy in my duties. I did not exact revenge the moment I knew that I needed to. And then he continues that lapsed in time and passion lets go by. The important act of your dread command, oh say. So he's like, it's because I haven't happened. It's because I did not do what you commanded me to do. Tell me, oh say, is that what you want? And the ghost goes, do not forget. This visitation is but to whet thy almost blunted purpose. But look, amazement on thy mother sits. Oh, step between her and her fighting soul. Conceit in weakest body, strongest works. Speak to her, Hamlet. The ghost is there because Hamlet is being mean to his mother. And you remember the ghost told Hamlet, look, dude, I want you to totes kill Claudius, but let your mother be, right? So, this is so sad. So, the ghost shows up, and he says, speak to her, Hamlet. And then Hamlet goes all tender. And he looks at his mother, who's like broken, who's seen her son talk to the air. And not only that, but he's basically called her thought a whole lot. And so she's like, oh God, this is awful. She's having a really bad day. There's still a dead body on the floor. Things are not well. Things are not well. Okay? So he goes, how is it with you, lady? And she's like, alas, how is it with you? Did you do bend your eye on vacancy? She's like, don't worry about me. You're looking and talking to nothing. Vacancy, there's nothing there. And with this incorporeal air do hold discourse. So you're talking to the air. And she goes, forth at your eyes your spirits widely peep. So at what are you looking at? And as the sleeping soldiers in the alarm, your bedded hairs, like life and excrement, start up and stand on end. So she's like, why do you look so frightened? Why is your hair standing on end? And she's like, oh, gentle sun, upon the heat and flame of thy distemper, sprinkle cool patience, whereon do you look? So she wants to know, what are you looking at? And Hamlet's like, on him! Him, look! How pale he glares, his form and cause conjoined, preaching to stones. But make them capable, do not look upon me, lest with this piteous action you convert my stern effects. So he's like, don't worry about me, but unless you're going to change your ways. And he's like, then what have I to do? Will want true color, tears perchance for blood. And then she's like, to whom do you speak this? And at this point, Hamlet's like, it's right there. Do you see nothing there? She's like, nothing at all. Yet all that is I see. So she's like, I just see you. And he's like, no, nor did you nothing here? She's like, no, nothing but ourselves. And then Hamlet's like, well, look you there. Look how it steals away. So at this point, the ghost is starting to slink away. My father in his habit as he lived. Look where he goes, even now at the portal, which is the door. Portal. And the ghost slinks off. And the queen says, this is the very coinage of your brain. This is something that your brain has created. This bodiless creation, ecstasy is very cunning in. And Hamlet goes, ecstasy? My pulse as yours doth temporately keep time, and make as healthful music. It is not madness that I've uttered. Bring me to the test, and I the matter will reword. Which madness would gamble from? Mother, for love of grace, lay not thy flattering unction to your soul, that not your trespass, but my madness speaks. Now, this is really cool, because when his mother says, this is madness, Hamlet gets upset, and he's like, no. Lay not the flattering unction to your soul, that not your trespass, but my madness. He's like, no, I don't want you to think that I am speaking out of lunacy. I want you to know that I am speaking out of anger against the sins you have committed against my father. You will not blame my lunacy. You need to blame yourself for your trespasses. So don't even try that. That's what he says. And then he continues, it will but skin and film the ulcerous place, whilst rank corruption mining all within infects unseen. He's like, if you do that, if you blame my lunacy for your sins, it will scab over and infection will fester under it. He's like, instead, lay it bare, lady. Lay it bare and heal it. Get rid of it. Get rid of Claudius, right? And he continues, confess yourself to heaven, repent what's past, avoid what is to come, and do not spread the compost on the weeds to make them rancor. Forgive me this, my virtue, for in the fatness of these pursy times, virtue itself of vice must pardon beg, yet curb and woo for leave to do him good. So he's like, get away from Claudius. You've got to stop this nastiness. Purge yourself. And the queen goes, oh, Hamlet, thou hast cleft my heart in twain, which means that you have broke my heart in two. And then Hamlet says this really cool thing. He's like, oh, throw away the worser part of it and live with the pure, with the other half. So he's like, okay, well, if I've broken your heart in two, then throw away the bad half. Throw away the half that has married Claudius. Throw away all of that and live with the good that is left in you. And then he's going to give her some very specific directions on what to do in order to live with the good half of her heart. And of course, he's like obsessed with him doing it. So that's the first thing that he goes into. So he's like, good night, but go not to mine uncle's bed. Assume a virtue if you have it not. That monster custom, who all sense doth eat, of habits evil, is angel yet in this, that to the use of actions fair and good, he likewise give a frock or livery that aptly is put on. Refrain tonight, and that shall lend a kind of easiness to the next abstinence. So he's like, start tonight. Girl, start tonight. Just start saying, nope, not tonight. I've got a terrible headache. And then he's like, and then Claudius will totes get used to being turned down and he'll just, shuffle away. And so he continues. It's like, for you, psalmists can change the stamp of nature and either curb the devil or throw him out with wondrous potency. Once more, good night. And when you are desirous to be blessed, I'll blessings beg of you. And at this point, he turns his attention to Polonius, and he goes, for this same Lord, I do repent. So we get right here that Hamlet is sorry for killing Polonius. He repents. He's like, my bad, dog. Sorry about the stabby. My bad. And so he's like, I do repent, but heaven hath pleased it so to punish me with this. Now, because he's murdered Polonius, there is no going back at this point. Hamlet's a dead man. He's a dead man. He's not going to make it out alive. And Hamlet knows this. He knows this. And so he goes, so heaven will punish me with this, and this with me, that I must the scourge and minister, I will bestow him, and will answer well the death I gave him. So basically, he's like, I'm going to take this body, I'm going to bestow it, I'm going to put it away. And he said, and I also, not only will I do that, but I will also answer. I will accept the punishment for what I've done. And then he leaves his mother. He says, so again, good night. I must be cruel only to be kind. Thus bad begins and worse remains behind. One word more good late. So he's getting ready to take Polonius out. He's accepted his fate that he is a dead man. But he just really wants one more time to tell his mom, do not be with Claudius. And the queen goes, what shall I do? And Hamlet goes again, not this by no means that I bid you do. Let the bloat king tempt you again to bed. Pinch wanton on your cheeks, call you his mouse, and let him for a pair of reachy kisses or paddling in your neck with his damned fingers make you to ravel all this matter out. That I essentially am not in madness, but mad in craft. And so he tells his mother, I'm feigning madness. I'm not mad. I know exactly what's happening. And he says, 'twere good you let him know. For who that's but a queen, fair, sober, wise, would you from a paddock, from a bat, a gib, such dear concernings hide? Who would do so? No. In despite of sense and secrecy, Unpeg the basket on the house's top. Let the birds fly, and like the famous ape to try conclusions, in the basket creep, and break your own neck down. And the queen says, be thou assured, if words be made of breath, and breath of life, I have no life to breathe what thou hast said to me. So basically she tells Hamlet that she's not going to speak of anything that he talked about, and that she will keep it secret, that she will keep her breath to herself. And then Hamlet goes, I must to England, you know that? So he knows that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are supposed to take him to England. And the queen goes, alack, I'd forgot 'tis so concluded on. She's like, oh, I forgot, but yeah, they're totes going to take you to England. And Hamlet goes, there's letters sealed, and my 2 schoolfellows, whom I will trust as I will adders famed. So he tells us right here that he does not trust Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, like they are 2 serpents, 2 adders famed. They bear the mandate. They must sweep my way and marshal me to knavery. Let it work. For 'tis the sport to have the engineer hoist with his own petard, and shall go hard. But I will delve 1 yard below their minds, and blow them at the moon. So right here he's telling them that he knows Rosencrantz and Guildenstern have a plan, but he's going to go engineer underneath that plan and blow them sky high. So he's like, oh, 'tis most sweet when in one line 2 crafts directly meet. This man shall set me packing. And then when he says, I'll lug the guts into the neighbor room, at this point, generally, he'll pick up Polonius by 1 leg. And when he says, I drag the guts, he means Polonius, because now he's just a big dead bag of guts. And so he grabs him by the leg. And as he's saying these lines, generally, Hamlet will slowly drag Polonius out. And he says, I'll lug the guts into the neighbor room. Mother, good night. Indeed, this counselor, talking about Polonius, is now most still. So now he's so still, and he's secret and most grave, who is in life a foolish, peating knave. Come, sir, to draw toward an end with you. Good night, mother. So then Hamlet drags Polonius out of the room. And that is the end of Act 3. We have reached its conclusion, y'all. So that's exciting. So we will pick up with Act 4 next. All right. Hope you liked it. Bye.